Ed eccoci in live ragazzi, ben trovati su Kristal Cross Gaming, il canale Twitch con un nuovo appuntamento con le nostre reaction e analisi, format abbastanza recente che ho voluto introdurre per vedere insieme a voi delle cose interessanti a cui fare appunto una reaction ma soprattutto un'analisi insieme, quindi averne esperienza. Mi sto concentrando su documentari che sono in lingua inglese e si concentrano sullo sviluppo di giochi o sull'esperienza e non solo di giochi, mi viene da dire, abbiamo visto per esempio documentario su Xbox perché penso che siano molto interessanti e molti di voi potrebbero non averlo visto affatto. Perciò mi fa piacere portarvelo, per così dire. Un saluto a tutti ragazzi, ciao Arsun, buonasera Vesh, grazie mille, grazie della sub al livello 1 per 13 mesi, grazie di cuore. Ciao Nico, ciao Musa, Lord of War, Cristian Nuru, ben trovati. Sera Ozzy. Ozzy? Oddio, per l'aspetto o o per il fatto che mi si è bruciato il cervello? Non lo so, entrambe le cose sono possibili. Allora, ragazzi, io tra parentesi mi sono scordato la Coca-Cola. Cosa gravissima. Cosa ancora più grave, mi sono scordato lo svapatore. Sono tutti e due di là. Li ho appoggiati, sono preparato, ho avviato la live, non sono andati a riprenderli. Datemi tipo 15 secondi e ritorno. Eccomi qua, sono tornato con il bottino, ok? Facciamo il cambio. Mi sono ripromessi di dargli una possibilità, adesso ma più in là. Ci sta ragazzi, non è un gioco proprio per tutti, ok? Ci sta, è abbastanza frenetico. Ecco, riconosco la bellezza di Hades, ma per me è troppo frenetico. Esatto, è un gioco... Aspetta, unboxing. Ecco, esatto. È un gioco veramente frenetico ed è un gioco bello tosto, ok? Non è esattamente per tutti, se non vi piace questo tipo di sfida. Neanch'io sono uno di quelli che ama le sfide, ma apprezzo troppo i giochi con quello stile là. Perciò mi ha fatto molto piacere. Rev Raptor, buonasera, Lord War. L'aspetto, prima di i capelli alla Ozzy, anche perché fai del rock. Ah, ok, perfetto. Perfetto. Beh, adesso sono semplicemente legati. Fa troppo caldo, ragazzi, fa veramente troppo caldo. Oggi si muore, veramente si muore. Oltretutto, siccome ci sono parenti con i miei 3 cugini, uno piccolissimo, uno piccolo e una un po' più grande, gli ho fatto i miei smash burger e devo dire che in questa bella giornata assolutamente freschissima, stare mezz'ora sopra la piastra arroventata per fare gli smash burger è stato proprio quel qualcosa in più che ci voleva all'esistenza, ok? Ti seguo da Playa San Juan di Tenerife, addirittura, cola, bene. Bene. Allora ragazzi, vedete anche che c'è il Nightbot, adesso sto per chiudere la raccolta fondi, c'è stato un po' di casino con il mio conto in banca, perciò, vabbè insomma è una cosa un po' complicata, ma la raccolta fondi che abbiamo fatto della maratona per la Croce Rossa, l'ho lasciata attiva mentre risolvo quel cazzo di casino, che non è su GoFundMe, è sul mio conto in banca, rottura di coglioni. E quindi intanto se qualcun altro vuole donare va benissimo. Tra l'altro se ipotizzate i pezzi del PC nuovo con Turco, mamma mia mi serve un rene, faccio un buon prezzo. Esatto. E si può provare Cult of the Lamb, una vera chicca. Fatto tutto, già giocato, c'è tutta la serie sul secondo canale YouTube, assolutamente meraviglioso e se tutto fila liscio arriva domani la recensione, d'accordo? Comunque, torniamo a noi. Abbiamo fatto la prima puntata, sarà divisa in 3 puntate questa reaction, eccetera, al documentario che ha fatto il famoso canale NoClip su Hades. Io, come sempre, prima di iniziare la reaction, Vi mostro il canale di NoClip Video Documentaries, andatevi a iscrivere assolutamente e se volete sostenerli c'è anche l'abbonamento. Loro tramite il Patreon o l'abbonamento su YouTube eccetera vanno a realizzare dei documentari veri e propri sullo sviluppo di tanti giochi. Per esempio 2 settimane fa c'è quello su Hyper Light Drifter e anche un'intervista a quello che ha fatto il remake di Bloodborne PSX, o anche approfondimento su Doom 4 cancellato e il gameplay di development di Doom 2016. Insomma, c'è tanta roba. Ok? La storia di CD Projekt, il documentario su Warframe, il documentario su Half-Life, quello su Final Fantasy XIV, che secondo me è uno dei più belli in assoluto, la storia di Rocket League, tanta roba. D'accordo? Quindi mi raccomando, adesso noi facciamo la reaction a uno dei loro documentari e andate, se non altro, come ringraziamento a iscrivervi al canale e a lasciare un po' di like ai vari video. Ok? Detto questo, io direi di buttarci subito sulla seconda parte della nostra reaction. Abbiamo visto il lancio della prima parte dell'Early Access e il caos della patch subito dopo, e hanno fatto una quantità di roba a questo gioco veramente infinita. Quel canale oro assolutamente, è fighissimo. Sì, vale ancora il dona, assolutamente sì. Ma non farò più donate come ho fatto ieri, ma insomma, no, l'altro ieri, ma insomma. Visitate il sito, peccato non hanno tutti i video, non tutti i video hanno i sottotitoli in italiano, ma hanno tutti i sottotitoli in inglese, fatti bene. E quindi con i sottotitoli fatti bene la traduzione in italiano è affidabile, d'accordo? Perché c'è la traduzione in automatica su qualcosa che però esiste, il sottotitolo in inglese. Ok, va bene. Ragazzi, buttiamoci subito nella reaction, ma come sempre prima mi raccomando, seguitemi qui su Twitch, se ancora non l'avete fatto, pigiate quel bel cuoricino, abbonatevi con Twitch Prime se ne avete la possibilità perché aiuta davvero tantissimo il canale. Seguitemi anche sui social come Instagram e Telegram dove c'è la community, supportate il canale tramite i link affiliati come Amazon, Instant Gaming o tramite il Patreon e anche iscrivetevi ai miei 2 canali YouTube se ancora non l'avete fatto, tutti i link sono qui sotto o tramite il bot in chat. D'accordo? Si va. Clac di tastiera.
Previously on Hades Developing Hell.
Our 4th game is called Hades. It's a narrative-driven roguelike dungeon crawler in which you battle your way out of the underworld of Greek myth.
So the thing we are trying that's new this time around is like a little bit of a new art style, but also this thing called early access, which is super scary because it involves putting your unfinished work into the open for everyone to judge, something that artists are inherently incredibly uncomfortable with.
Eccolo qua, il canale è questo qua, NoClip. Andatevi a iscrivervi subito perché è un meraviglioso canale. E se non sapete l'inglese non è un grosso problema, i sottotitoli automatici sono affidabili perché partono dall'esistenza di sottotitoli in inglese.
The gods favor.
It is April 23rd. I've been sick for approximately 2 weeks. I am today working on...
Scusate, posso fare il nerd? Mi consentite di fare il nerd? Questo è il compressor di Logic. Anche io uso Logic per registrare quando faccio il tecnico del suono. Questo è il compressore di Logic. E adesso non mi chiedete in che modalità è perché da qui non riesco a vederlo, anche perché è tutto bruciato, qua deve tutto sbiancastro. Però sì, oltretutto è la nuova versione, quindi Logic è abbastanza aggiornato. Fabrizio Franchi, grazie mille della sub con Prime. Grazie. Scusate, dovevo fare il nerdone, perdonatemi.
I've been sick for approximately 2 weeks. I am today working on many things, including rendering out a bunch of the voiceover that we've been recording with a bunch of different actors.
Ringraziati di tutti i video che fai.
Grazie
mille del supporto. Grazie di cuore.
I'm under the weather. And I need to finish.
Guardate. Nico vi ha dato il link proprio del canale, basta che ci cliccate, proprio il penultimo messaggio in chat, youtube.com/noclipvideo. Mi raccomando, andateci a dare una bella iscrizione e mettete like a un po' di loro videi. Figurati, io in questo campo sono nabba, non ti preoccupare. Questo è sul canale di Music Production, uno dei miei canali, c'è il corso di audio engineering che ancora non è finito, però una buona parte delle basi sono coperte se vi interessa.
1.5 new pieces of music soon.
Questo è l'audio director.
7th, so we have exactly 2 weeks. And so of actual time that I can put stuff into the game, we maybe have like a week and a half.
No. Blast.
Only on, I guess, Pyre did I discover that Logic had the feature where you could like render a bunch of stuff at the same time. A bunch of individual things at the same time. So that's been really helpful.
Quanto lo capisco! Anni fa, man mano che uno impara a fare il tecnico del suono, ci sono delle cose che porca puttana ti richiedono un sacco di tempo e poi di botto scopri, ma c'è un tool per farle tutte quante in automatico insieme con un paio di click. Molto interessante. Mi ricordo che all'inizio, quando cominciai a fare i primissimi lavori, c'erano i fade in e i fade out delle tracce, delle singole regionette eccetera, che le mettevo sempre io a mano. Solo dopo mesi ero proprio all'inizio, ragazzi, solo dopo mesi ho scoperto che potevi selezionarle tutte insieme e fare fade in scrivendo il numero di millisecondi e fade out il numero di millisecondi, quindi ho scambiato tipo 2 ore di lavoro con 15 secondi.
Since then, otherwise I used to do them one by one.
Esatto, pure io ho fatto cose del genere.
Where I used to have to spend a bunch of time like selecting takes and comping stuff, and we just like pick the take during the thing, and then I have a friend of mine, Brad Hagman, who's worked on Pyre and this game, does all the VO editing for me. So he takes, based on what we declare as the winner take, he takes that take and cleans it up and puts it on this track that I call selects, and he edits it to the proper format, gets rid of stuff, he'll get rid of it or pick a different take if he has to. And then I can just put the effects on and render it like all at once. And it just saves such a bunch of time. I used to spend so much time doing that. There was construction happening below my apartment for basically the entire production of Transistor. So Logan and I had to like, okay, the hammering stopped, do a take. We're good to go here, let's see. Check, hey, I hear my voice. Okay, let me just, a little bit, down a little bit.
AKG 414 è il microfono.
Death area. So this is when I arrived.
Non mi chiedete quale serie perché da qui non riesco a capirlo e probabilmente potrei anche non saperlo anche se la vedessi, però che bello quando vedi delle cose che riconosci professionalmente, diciamo così.
It's one bad bull. It's one bad bull. It's one bad bull. First take. H24. That was 823. 824. Oh, I got the horns. I got the horns. I got the horns. Oh, blasted ghost minotaur. That's probably the one. Oh, Jesus. I'm also trying.
Ok, no, scusate, questa è una puntata in cui ho un po' di cose. Questa è il workhorse della Radial, è un modulo di alimentazione di singole unità che si chiamano Serie 500. È un formato relativamente recente in tecnica del suono e sono questi cosi hardware che servono a... Ci puoi fare un sacco di robe, in realtà, e questi sono... Vaffanculo, non riesco a capirlo. Questo è Rupert Neve Designs, questo è un ottimissimo preamplificatore, mi pare di... No, aspetta, cos'è? Non riesco a capirlo da qua. No, forse una channel strip? Cioè preamp, equalizzazione, compressore? Forse è solo un compressore. Non mi ricordo, cioè non riesco a capirlo da qua. Però sono delle cose che fanno delle diverse funzioni e io non ne ho neanche uno, per esempio, di questi faccio tutto in the box, cioè tutto in digitale praticamente. Però sono molto buoni, tipo Rupert Neve Designs costano un sacco di soldi. Veramente un sacco. Ho capito una cosa, lui degli sviluppatori del gioco è solo l'incaricato di audio e doppiaggio. No, lui è l'audio design, cioè è il responsabile della sezione audio, quindi è uno degli sviluppatori della sezione audio, ma è anche uno dei doppiatori del gioco e anche uno dei musicisti, anzi forse il musicista principale. diciamo che si può dire che abbia fatto il 70% del lavoro dell'intero audio di Hades, sia doppiaggio che musica, praticamente l'ha fatto lui. Da Master.
To get like this new piece of music that I've just started to a place where I can record some drums for it on Friday. So I need to have like the form decided and ready to go by then, because I record drums at home.
Sì, lui è molto bravo. Altro inciso interessante, ragazzi, lui, vi ricordate gli ultimi Game Awards? Che c'è stato quel momento con i oddio, come cavolo si chiamano? Gli Imagine Dragon che cantavano la canzone, quella di Arcane, no? Ecco, lui stava lì, ospite degli Imagine Dragons, a suonare una parte, e credo che è anche una delle cantanti che ha fatto le linee vocali per Hades. È stato un momento molto figo quello là, perché io la sapevo questa cosa, perché lo sviluppo l'avevo seguito, quindi li ho riconosciuti tutti, e magari nei Game Awards molti non sapevano neanche chi cazzo fosse, però era lì sul palco. Al lavoro di Chris più o meno, sì, più o meno, nel senso è un tecnico del suono e un musicista, ma si vede che principalmente è un musicista che poi si è messo nella sezione videogiochi. Io però non avrei la minima idea di che cosa fare per implementare l'audio in un videogioco. Cioè io mi fermo alla composizione e registrazione delle cose. Se poi mi chiedi di occuparmi della parte audio di un videogioco, da lì in poi non so assolutamente che cosa fare. È una specializzazione a parte praticamente.
So right now I have like riffs that I think are cool. I need to like get better at so I can play them well enough to sound good. Because I'm trying to write like stuff that's like slightly beyond my normal comfort zone of stuff I like to play on guitar, you know. It's like I'm trying to go a little more metal than my, you know, natural tendency.
Ti vogliamo in Hades 2? Non sarebbe male, però
by like
un grande impegno.
You know, doing it in pieces and editing it together, or slowing it down and recording it and speeding it up. But you know, I could do that if I have to, but I want to try and do it, you know, for real.
Most of me checking out other types of music for inspiration and figuring out what the instrumentation is going to be like happens at the beginning of the project, more sort of broadly for the project as a whole, than from song to song. That's a big part of how I determine what a game is going to sound like, where I try to have the instrumentation choices represent some aspect of the world of the game. I ask myself at the beginning, you know, what is the sound of this place? What are the instruments that might be played there? What does music sound like in this place? And that's going to be at least one component of the music that I'm making.
I'll pick it up from there. And I still need to do a mix and stuff on this, a proper mix. Like I've got all the stuff roughed out, but like all the pieces have like an intro section that's just like a synth pad essentially with some light percussion and like a little pulsing bass, like all the stuff that plays while you are actually doing a run and going room to room. And then there's like an acoustic folk instrument sort of version of the thing. And then there's the second part is like the same form again, essentially in like a intense, harder rocking version of it. So the harder rocking thing is basically that's pretty much done. I need to tweak the mix on it a little bit, but I have the acoustic part is not done, and the mix on the rest is not done. So I can let me show you just a. So most of the pieces I'll start with the acoustic part first. This one I wanted to write it for that section
of rock.
because my goal was like whatever this is, I want it to feel rad when you're fighting a minotaur. Like, that's what I want. That's the goal of the piece, because I know it's going to be, you're going to encounter it in that context. And that's a big part of the new biome. So that was my main focus writing this one. And with the next one as well. It's a little bit of a change of method, but it's been fun to sort of look at that part first and then extrapolate that back to like a broken down, less intense version of the thing.
It is April 25th, the second to last week of our update number 4 milestone.
Questa pure è veramente tosta, è figa proprio, cioè ha fatto praticamente quasi da sola l'intero comparto artistico di Hades. Incredibile.
And the artists are now unleashed upon the world. So that we may make it more beautiful. What we have found is our particular schedule is actually the most useful for the art team and kind of the art team alone, because we come at the end of the entire pipeline. So anytime a scheduling change needs to be made, it's always kind of often on the shoulders and the heads of the artists to kind of make it work at the end, which is not to say that everyone is bullying us, and that they are conscious that we do need real time to make good art, but it is basically a situation where we are constantly updating the schedule, constantly pivoting on the things that we think we're going to be doing.
La fatica di fare lavori così, da soli forse è peggio ancora. Probabilmente sì, però effettivamente poi, a meno che tu non abbia problemi di sincronizzazione con te stesso, sai che sei tu il responsabile da solo di una cosa, sai quello che devi fare, quindi magari ci sono anche dei pro.
Given changing priorities. Yeah, so a good example of things that I'm watching out for are like Josh has like a bunch of effects scheduled for Elysium enemies and the boss.
Sono organizzati bene, molto bene.
That's predicated on both the animations being finished and of course the model being finished. So, the whole dependency chain is like pretty strong there. So I just need to make sure Josh isn't preemptively scheduled for that kind of thing, or if he's just like going to have to wait too long to even get started, such that he doesn't have time to do something that he considers good enough for early access.
In team come questi credo che sia veramente tipo un po' una famiglia.
We have generally worked as a design-led team, so often, if not always, the art team is waiting on design to create a prototype that they are happy with. That design then goes through a creative development phase, which is Greg. It's mostly Greg's work, and he delves deep into his creative recesses. After that, it comes directly to me or whoever is going to be working on the art, and we work together with Greg and design to iterate on whatever piece of work we're trying to make. So it's essentially a big problem-solving activity because we're trying to filter and negotiate the feedbacks between design, creative, and our own artistic impulses. But it's a fun and harrowing process, and what comes out the end when you take your time to really do that right is like a real sense of satisfaction that you found a cool creative solution that you wouldn't have originally thought of on your own. That being said, I will mention that in Elysium's case, one of the more frustrating parts of the experience is due to the nature of our early access schedule. Design has actually not really been running ahead of art as much as we'd like, so we actually had to do a lot of the concept before design had really finalized what they wanted. But it's a different world in early access, and it's hard to know what the right thing to do is, especially when so much of what you put in the first time it goes out is really just first pass. Being comfortable with that and knowing that you will have time later to continue iterating. That's one thing, but also you won't be able to iterate on 100% of things. So you can't really just go willy-nilly on everything you do, because that ends up being a lot of wasted time too, and we are a studio that does not like to waste time. How y'all doing? Great. Yeah. Yeah, we're doing so good. For the camera, I guess. So this is our meeting, our once every milestone meeting, in this case twice as milestone, because we...
Qua ragazzi sono ancora in fase early access, ok? Perché l'abbiamo vista quella parte nel scorso episodio, abbiamo visto i primi 2 segmenti di questo documentario e qua stanno... sì, la parte di music e art, questo segmento, sì, ve l'avrei dovuto dire all'inizio effettivamente, però c'è scritto How Supergiant Games Create Music and Art, Developing Hell numero 3, che vuol dire che è la parte 2, perché noi vediamo 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, quindi sono 3 episodi.
We have an 8-week milestone.
Però hanno messo Pepe al culo per fare le cose più celermente possibile. Vabbè, ma l'efficienza in queste cose... Perché poi se perdi tempo a esplorare ogni possibile recesso delle cose, a volte è meglio, come si dice alle mie parti, portala a casa.
With our mighty artist pens. Okay, hey Josh.
Yo.
You made it, you're on camera. Usual and best case scenario is I design something and I make sure that it looks good in isometric. So the first concept that is the proof of concept really is the isometric drawing of the enemy or character. From there, if that seems to check out with everyone on design and creative and art side, we move forward and I create orthogonals. Which is just like the front, the back, the side, and like call outs to whatever details may seem confusing or may not make a lot of sense in the isometric. I have to problem solve around like how do the joints work on this like pauldron and how does it actually attach. And then from there, Paige just takes it and she makes magic and turns it into a 3D thing that you can look at, which is awesome. In more recent times, because of the early access process, I haven't had the luxury of creating all the orthogonals, so I have really just been sending her the isometric versions of the concept and then like really rough proportion sketches and any call-outs for any part that may seem like extra confusing. So she's been working with that, and no matter what I give her, like I said, she produces gold, so I guess maybe that's just telling me that I should stop creating orthogonals, but I feel like it's my job, and I feel like I'm shirking it if I don't do it. I don't know, it's an industry standard. So in Joanne's case, she has come in and really just like taken over a lot of the duties of map creation, including concept phase.
I'm not sure if this is true, but I think maybe some people think that the maps are computer generated. They're not. Everything is hand placed with love and care, very purposefully for composition, lighting, color. I created a bunch of mossy assets, crystals, structures, rocks, grass, the best things.
So we basically decide what are the high level details.
Mi sta dando allora che quest'altra ha fatto un sacco di roba in realtà.
What's the general tone of this area? What's the general palette that we're looking for? And what is the fictional conceit for this area? So she's provided with all of that from myself and Greg. And then she goes and plays and has fun doing concepts and drawing things. And then I just over the shoulder, I'm like, yes, no, yes, yes, yes. From nothing to concept, it takes about 4 weeks. After that, she has the go-ahead to start beautifying maps in a rough manner. So she will do a prototype of a map, and we can take a look at what the translation of the concept into real map actually looks like. There's a little bit of course correction that happens there. The 2 weeks before the update goes out are the 2 weeks where the most art is changed and the most polish is put into the game. Literally on Friday night at 5 p.m., like the whole game feels like it changes. you know, we ship the update the Tuesday after that, and it's like, there's just not enough time for me to sit down and play with the game and like take it all in and think about like the larger pictures until a little bit after that. So I'm actually in the process of doing that right now. All right, so my main concentration this time around is Elysium, of course. I'm playing just to review a lot of Joanne's work in bulk. A lot of the enemies actually have also just started coming online. We had actually a little bit of a crisis earlier in the week. We had a playtest on Monday, which was 3 days ago, and one of the main enemies in the playtest is this guy that we called internally the Shade. And he's this, you know, heroic warrior who
Che odiosi di merda che sono questi.
But the thing I forgot, or I didn't concentrate hard enough on when I conceptualized him, was that he needs to be visible. So we had a little bit of a crisis where the Shade himself, like, he was all black. In fact, let me bring him up so you can see the concept, see what I'm talking about. So yeah, as you can see, he is a dark, shadowy figure. A dark, shadowy, Greekish figure. And he was actually concepted before anything in Elysium had actually become concrete as far as the environment was concerned. So, you know, my attempts to predict visibility issues were like, let's give them these like really bright magenta and blue tones so that they pop out from the background. As it turns out, Elysium is a lot of blue and a lot of black because we're using a lot of black in our game in general. It's still supposed to be kind of this shadowy, cavernous place. So what happened is this character or this enemy just basically got lost.
Praticamente, vedi, ha realizzato questo personaggio qui, no? E tra l'altro odiosi di merda, maledetti. Ha fatto penare tantissimo. È solo che nel playtest, una volta che hanno sovrapposto questo personaggio alla mappa, alla fine il concept del personaggio e quello della mappa, anche se inizialmente erano pensati in maniera armoniosa, poi quando sono stati realizzati da qualcuno, l'altra ragazza aveva pensato alla mappa un sacco blu, un sacco nera, e praticamente i personaggi si perdevano in mezzo alla mappa. Mega cacchio! E bisogna andare a cambiare tante cose, esatto.
There was the nuclear option of completely inverting this guy's color, turning him white in case we couldn't find some other solution. But as it turns out, you know, with a little bit of post-processing, which is a thing we do on all of our enemies, and a bit of a texture update, which to better reflect what was concepted here, it seems like it's going to be okay. We'll know in a week's time if it is truly okay, but I think this is going to be my first time looking at the Shade in the game with his updated textures that are in theory better and more visible.
Quanto cazzo è odioso che poi muoiono e lasciano questa cazzo di cosina che la devi uccidere. Quella cosetta con l'occhio. E se non la uccidi ritornano.
Soul pops out and it can go back and possess this weapon right here and become a real boy again.
Esatto,
we're also
maledetti.
having similar problems with the little soul, which we call the naked Shade, being visible and trackable during combat, since it's such an important part of ending combat. I don't know if we've solved those issues yet, but I think these guys are pretty good. Like previously, I remember playing in this corner and it just being like completely illegible. The character looked too similar to his effects. He looked too similar to the background. But he's got this spotlight under his feet now, which was another one of our attempts to make him super visible. I think he's sitting in a pretty safe place right now. He's not the most visible, but he's also not the most untasteful. And that's what's key. That, in a nutshell, is how art and design works together.
Questo allora abbiamo visto il gioco precedente, oltre allo sviluppo e gioco ci devono giocare. Assolutamente, c'hanno i playtest. Sì.
That I like, that I've been trying to get better at playing, that I want to have be the basis for this new piece. I was exploring it more last night, and I think I've got a structure in mind. I just need to sort of track a scratch guitar track, lay that down, and then I will play drums to that and have the structure of the piece all fleshed out, before I do the drums. And then I'll just do a billion takes of drums and comp together a good take and edit that, and that's the plan. Yep.
Beh, lui è evidentemente un chitarrista di base.
This is a weird guitar. There's like certain sounds that work really well for other guitars I have sound really terrible for this guitar. It's just like
dipende dai pick up, dipende dalla tensione delle corde.
It sound really heavy if I find the right thing. Is it metal? It's not metal. It's rockin', but
sì.
It's not metal.
È più alternative rock, sì.
Can always tweak it. But I like to start from I can always tweak the sounds, but I like to. There's so many presets on here that are really spectacular that it's actually just more practical to like pick a really close preset and then tweak as needed. Just because there's just so many options that like one of them is going to be pretty close.
La ricerca del preset da cui partire.
I've got a couple that are pretty close, but I'm trying to see if I can get closer. And then this is like a rat pedal equivalent, This is a flanger pedal, but you've got all these pedals over here.
Sta usando gli amp interni di Logic. Pensa te.
Fuzz. Visually, you can tell kind of what pedal they're actually modeled after. Like this is like a memory man delay, and it's really easy to navigate.
Sì, ma questo. Me lo ricordo sto pezzo in Hades. Questo è il suo home studio. Danigan.
Plug in my drums and get going here. The idea is, the drums I have in there now are just
la batteria elettronica.
Sort of the feel of the thing. It's just easier to play to that for me than
non sono un amante della batteria elettronica, la batteria finta preferisco scriverla a tavolino.
To replace with like a real drum track, and I'm gonna, have there be sections that are where I play different stuff and add some live energy into the piece, basically. So the way I've been doing it for Hades is I'll perform a drum part on my electronic kit, and record the MIDI output of that essentially into Logic and use the Logic drum sounds.
Okay.
And I can sort of put together a perfect performance from a bunch of takes and sort of edit it as I see fit. But for a while, you'll see me sucking and scrambling or just trying to figure out like what the parts are.
Ok, si vede che non è prettamente un batterista.
Usually garbage, and then and then I start to figure out, okay, cool, this part should be like this, and so that's the idea.
Il suono vero lo sta sentendo solo lui.
might be close enough for me to start editing. Yeah, I didn't nail everything, but got some good enough ideas in there, I think, that I can at least start the editing process. So good. You know, during the less intense section of the pieces, we have a system set up in the game where it can play any combination, essentially, of drums, bass, and guitar. And so I need to have something happening on the percussion track at all times. But in the intense sections, we actually have all the stems active 100% of the time. It's in the intense section. So I don't really need to keep the drums going the whole time, actually. So it probably would be better to have some dynamic breaks in there. So I will probably keep that part, actually. It's a bit of a workout. Oh, jeez. I wish I had more time to just play drums. It's really fun. It's more fun than doing exercise.
Batteria del tempo dovrebbe fare con te, nel senso, per il pezzo da batteria e poi la chitarra, perché si vede che lui è un chitarrista principalmente, quindi mette giù una piccola cosa, giusto anche solo il metronomo per dargli la guida, poi si inventa il riff e ci suona la batteria sopra. Tanti fanno così.
Yeah, my name is Camilo Vanegas. I'm the 3D artist and animator at Vediamolo Games. I joined the company in 2012, and I was the only solo 3D artist and animator in the company for a long time. Yeah. Transistor was a project that was my first project, so it was like basically a big learning point for me about working in games, about production, about pipeline, about what it's like when people actually react to your work. So many people in the video game community. But I do have my heart is with Pyre, because it sort of was the point where like I was feeling more confident about my work, and when I actually got to express more of like the design and the aesthetics that I love. So definitely Pyre is the one
Pyre
that
non
I
l'ho
can,
giocato,
like,
neanche Transistor, cioè li ho soltanto provati, effettivamente.
For me it's been
Bastion invece è un gioco che pure quello ho soltanto provato, però mi piacerebbe giocarlo tutto.
Now I have more people working with me, so we have Paige and then contractors to help me with some of the work. So it was like a little bit like 50% of my time was just trying to manage that work, and also the other part was continuing animating the project.
His perspective has been invaluable in the work that we've done to this point, and I'll be really excited to see what he comes up with next, because I think he's a genius animator. One animator has done everything in our games since Transistor, and he 3D models all that stuff too. So yeah, he's been a one-stop shop.
I feel like I got very lucky. Not only is a place that they care a lot about the people, but also that you get to learn a lot. And I got super lucky with having like people like Amir and Jen, that they were like really good leaders, and then they kind of gave me the space to grow a lot. It's something that I'm gonna always be grateful to me. I'm always gonna be here for the company. It's already part of who I am, so that's not going away at all. Yeah.
So when it comes time for me to like create a character or concept, you know, the very first line of defense is first consulting Greg, our story guy, creative director, to make sure I'm gonna be taking into account like all the factors that he wants, so that he can tell the right kind of story using this character. The second step is to just go to good old google.com. In the case of Theseus, it's like, I'd like to know how he was written and how he was drawn on like ancient Greek pottery. Like that kind of thing is more interesting to me. Even if none of it actually ends up manifesting itself in my final concept, it's still really important, I think, to acknowledge, you know, what was the actual root of this character. There is a certain like community mindshare concept of the character that can't be completely avoided either. So the Minotaur is a really good example. When I did my initial research on him, you know, in general, when he's depicted, He's actually like all man except for his minotaur head. That was one of the decisions I had to make. Like, do I give this guy hooves or do I give him feet? Because is it weird for him to have feet now for most of our players? Like, will they understand that this is a minotaur? I also need to take into account how the character is going to move and how they're going to interact with the world around them.
Questi qua, le prime volte che l'ho affrontati è stato un
Those kind of
dramma.
considerations are more for, you know, I probably can't have a crazy projection on a shoulder pad because he needs to lift his arm really high. I can't give him big flappy shoes because it'd be really hard to animate something like that, or it won't read well in isometric.
We don't have a lot of direct, the art team and I don't have a lot of direct collaboration, but I definitely am always looking at the stuff that the art team is making and looking at the concepts and looking at the sort of backgrounds for the
Bello quello che hai detto riguardo a te,
sì,
immagino di sì.
And all that stuff, and I'm trying to incorporate that stuff into the tone of what I'm doing.
I like asking Greg a lot of weird questions, like, what kind of food does Thanatos?
Vedete, questo è molto interessante per come lavora un team in generale, non solo un team di sviluppo di videogiochi. Per esempio, se tu stai facendo la musica per il gioco, in fondo stai facendo la musica, cosa cacchio c'entra con il personaggio come è stato disegnato? Ma quello che vi ha appena detto, per esempio il responsabile dell'audio, come ha detto anche il responsabile, funziona anche al contrario, è che lui, anche se potrebbe in realtà immaginarselo completamente dal nulla, lui ha assolutamente intenzione di guardare come sono stati disegnati i personaggi, perché potrebbe comunicarti qualcosa di diverso e finisci per andare a comporre qualcosa di diverso, in realtà. Qualcosa che sembra raffigurare meglio quello che sta creando il team artistico, cioè l'art team, no? Il design team. È interessante come cosa. E sì. Questo nel piccolo vale anche quando registri una canzone originale per una band, anche se sei soltanto il tecnico del suono che deve premere rec su una registrazione che sta facendo qualcun altro. Però è sempre bene chiedere alla band qual è l'intenzione, perché comunque se sei partecipe puoi anche operare in diverse cose. Cioè, sono tante piccole cose che contribuiscono a creare un lavoro. Una discreta differenza dall'altro grande titolo tema mito greco, God of War, dove tutti i personaggi sono esteticamente più simili al mito greco. Sì. Ora ci aggiungere anche Immortal Phoenix. Già, a me quelle versioni videoludiche dei miti greci mi piacciono un sacco. Sono un po' cartunose, un po' fumettose, così. Io le ho sempre adorate. C'è chi le odia, per esempio, ma mi sono sempre piaciute tantissimo.
It's like, does Patroclus like stay up late at night, or is he kind of like a morning person? Like weird things like that can like actually be really useful. I kind of interface evenly with like engineers and designers also, because you know, anytime an artist wants something particular to happen to this one piece of art in this one moment, usually we can't get that done by ourselves. So we just need to put in like a feature request, and that sometimes goes to the engineer, and sometimes we have to make sure it doesn't interfere with like the design and gameplay. I guess that's just my way of saying I kind of talk to everyone.
Miti greci romani riconosciuti grazie ai libri di Luciano che Scienzo, che ricordi mai letti in realtà.
And the parts for this new piece for the new biome, I recorded like a basic guitar track and then tracked drums to that and then edited those drums and made a proper drum track. And we're like a week and a half out from the update. I have a lot to do between now and then because we can't put stuff in that whole time. So I have to do a bunch of sound effects. That's sort of my main stuff that I have left. All the voiceover is done. The first piece of music is done. This piece of music is started. Probably won't launch the day of the update, but maybe I can patch it in like a couple of days later. That's what I'm thinking. So we'll see. I'd like to launch it with the update, but I just have to, you know, everything needs sounds. So I have to do that first. So that's the plan.
So I think it's really interesting working on something in early access, and it's super different. I think having people know what we're working on and having it all out there really changes the vibe, because we get to see sort of people's reaction to the stuff that exists already in the game in sort of real time, basically, as soon as we release it. So it's been really cool, and maybe added like a slightly different type of pressure to see that stuff in action and to see people's reaction in real time. You know, sort of shutting yourself away for 3 years and working on something that no one's gonna, you don't know if people will like it or not until the end of that period. I think having some indications that maybe we're on the right track here is sort of comforting after only a year, a little bit more than a year of working on the game. We got to sort of have that reaction from people, which is really exciting and invigorating. And yes, the sort of update cadence is grueling sometimes, and having to keep putting out new stuff on a regular basis that people get to experience. But I think it also is exhilarating, at least as much as it is grueling. It's downloading. Man, it's happening.
Have you picked up on it?
I don't know, but I am doing the update myself right now from Epic. Yeah, this is an update day dim sum feast, which we've done a couple of updates, and I think we should keep it going because.
Cos'è questa, la festa?
Kind of
La festa per l'update? La donna ride.
Like, I want to believe we're gonna make it super far and everything, but I'm also wow.
Ah, stanno guardando tutti insieme il live streaming di un tizio. Ma guardate che figata.
So long as I am here. 2 against 1 seems hardly fair. Ah, well. Let's kill him and be done, King.
Theseus, the Bull of Minos. You two are legends. I'd be honored if we had a sporting contest here.
A naked attempt to sway me from my convictions. Defend yourself, you blackguard, and may the gods show you some mercy, for I shall not. Well, hellspawn, not ready to admit defeat as yet.
È un sacco di
Our
botte.
latest
La
update
prima
just
volta
went
che
live. It is
lo
the
incontri.
beefy update. Includes a lot of new content. Biome number 3, Elysium, the next level of hell or heaven, depending on how you want to think about it. And also new bosses, new mini bosses, new enemies. It was a really exciting milestone, I think, because we had the chance to slow down the pace of our early access updates from like a 4-week cadence to an 8-week cadence. We were finding the 4-week cadence, though they worked, they definitely presented a different kind of challenge as far as feeling like you were trying to ship something like real good every month.
Sto già lavorando a qualche altro progetto, sai che non lo so, cioè immagino di sì. Perché comunque ci sono stati update su Hades così, però sono sicuramente al lavoro su qualcos'altro. Magari. Non vedo l'ora di saperne di più.
It's out as of 1 hour ago, and people are playing it, and that's really cool. Saw like a couple people get to experience Theseus and the Minotaur, and someone noticed the Minotaur's hair, so I was happy with that. Yeah.
E ok, prima parte fatta, adesso ci tocca la seconda, ragazzi. Le paure e le speranze di portare Hades su Steam. Ecco perché fino a questo punto dello sviluppo, ragazzi, Hades è stato esclusiva Epic Game Store.
It's a narrative-driven roguelike.
I think having people know what we're working on really changes the vibe, because we get to see sort of people's reaction to the stuff that exists already in the game.
Hopefully with these big updates, we do get people to come back and re-engage with the game. It's really important to us because that means we get the feedback that we want so that we can make the next one a good one, and around we go.
Ah, scusate, cazzo, si sono tolti i sottotitoli, non me ne sono neanche accorto. Abbiate pazienza un attimo. Vabbè, era solo il sunto dell'episodio precedente, quindi. Ok, ci siamo. Io li leggo poco i sottotitoli, perché trattandosi di inglese, grazie a Dio, lo capisco. Comunque sì, Mosa, chissà che cosa stanno sviluppando, non vedo l'ora. È uno dei miei film di sviluppo preferiti, questo qua.
And kind of thought it might go that way with the early access development thing. It definitely keeps the pace around here brisk because we've always got our eye on trying to wrap up the major update that we happen to be working on, and no sooner does that one come out that we're already planning the one after that, and turns out you can get through a year pretty quickly going through that kind of process. So we got through 8 major updates in our first year of early access development. We had the Chaos update, we had the Good Times update.
The Beefy update, where you fight Theseus and the Minotaur in the Shades of Elysium. We did the High Speed update, where we introduced the Olympian Hermes and all sorts of movement-based and dash-based powers.
In August, we had the Big Bad update, which introduced the final area of the game, the final boss fight, all kinds of other stuff like that. We celebrated our 10th anniversary. We went to PAX, all kinds of wild stuff in August, and announced that Hades is going to be coming to Steam later in that same year.
The next 2 updates after that were mostly focused on kind of the game's replayability in 2 parts. The Superstar update was about making sure the game was highly replayable for all players for a really, really, really long time. And we did that by kind of taking inspiration from games like Slay the Spire with their Ascension system and other things like that.
Questo sistema io l'ho a malapena scalfito.
Where you take each of the weapons, which are kind of like our version of our game's classes, and slowly advance them to the ranks in order to get bounties, which you use to then upgrade your weapons.
And then we had the Welcome to Hell update in December of 2019,
where we introduced legendary keepsakes and deeper relationship building and all sorts of stuff that people have been asking for a long time. You know, legendary keepsakes are where you
ecco, su questo completismo qua, su queste cose mi piacerebbe che ci fosse stato qualcosa in più, e anche su questi. Ma sono pronto a scommettere che con il prossimo gioco faranno un vero doppia A ancora più qualitativamente alto. Madonna mia, non vedo l'ora. Un anno di early access e poi lanciato a un pubblico più grande. Il futuro dei lavori Supergiant molto influenzato dal lancio su Steam. La paura che il lancio su Steam possa avere un po' di polemica da parte dell'esistente utenza.
So prior to the Steam launch, the things we knew we had were a game that some of our most hardcore early adopting fans really, really liked. A game where they enjoyed our early access and being a part of it, update on update. A game that we had the sense from our internal playthroughs and from the playthroughs with the community that was getting better every time. But there's a chance that the feedback we were getting was not necessarily representative of like all players. And I think for us, there is always sort of this question of like, well, what will happen when it makes the next jump?
Questo è assolutamente una cosa interessante. Avete sentito bene, ragazzi? Ovvero, abbiamo avuto il gioco in early access per un anno ed è stata una bellissima esperienza poter sostanzialmente sviluppare, aggiungere tanti contenuti, ascoltare migliaia di feedback da parte dell'utenza che ha gradito fare il viaggio insieme a noi, cioè fare tutto quanto il percorso e quindi portare tutte le proprie idee. Bellissimo. Eh sì, è una delle cose belle dell'early access questa. Io credo anche dal punto di vista di uno sviluppatore, anche a livello personale deve essere una cosa molto bella, con anche i suoi contro, ma molto bella. Però il contro grosso è che nel momento in cui poi il gioco viene lanciato alla 1.0, se vogliamo, poi impatta con il grande pubblico, ovvero il grande pubblico è quello che non c'ha voglia di stare dietro a tutto lo sviluppo di un gioco, cioè c'è a chi piace comprare il gioco in early access e vederlo crescere, dando il suo contributo tramite feedback, anche fosse soltanto uno streamer che fa dei playthrough. di un gioco in early access, si dà un grande contributo. L'abbiamo visto nel documentario che cosa stavano facendo spesso, stavano guardando degli streamer che giocavano. Anche quello è un feedback, è un contenuto, è una cosa importante, ma non a tutti piace questa cosa qui, anzi, se vogliamo è un'utenza ristretta che è sufficientemente hardcore da prendere un gioco in early access, spolparselo per bene, stare dietro a tutto quanto lo sviluppo, fare dei feedback consapevoli, eccetera. E quindi qual è il grosso problema? È che il feedback ricevuto da quel tipo di utenza più hardcore potrebbe non essere lo stesso feedback ricevuto da un pubblico molto più grande, che magari non sa assolutamente niente di questo gioco, apre Steam, o guarda, oggi è uscito questo gioco, Hades, o apre la pagina e dico, che cos'è? Oh, ma che figo, guarda quante belle animazioni, un action così, ok, che figata, mi sa che lo prendo, sì dai lo prendo, adesso ci gioco. Il feedback di quella persona probabilmente sarà diverso da quello di un giocatore più hardcore che ha seguito tutto quanto lo sviluppo del gioco e ha dato fiducia al team di sviluppo, e il team di sviluppo ha dato credito ai feedback di quell'utenza lì. E quindi la paura loro, secondo me, è più che giustificata, perché nel momento in cui c'è il lancio globale del gioco fuori dall'early access, nel senso che il prodotto lanciato, questo è il giorno di lancio della versione definitiva fuori dall'early access, arriverà al pubblico casual, se vogliamo, casual riferito, cioè in confronto al resto. Non mi viene a dire che i giocatori di Hades siano esattamente un gruppo dei giocatori casual, perché come mi avete detto anche, ha detto qualcuno di voi in chat, è un gioco piuttosto ostico e io sono perfettamente d'accordo con voi, è stata una faticaccia finirlo tutto quanto, però un'esperienza meravigliosa che rifarei 30 volte, nonostante il livello di sfida un po' fuori dalla mia comfort zone, se vogliamo. Ok, però è sempre un grande pubblico questo qui. Quale sarà il vero feedback? È interessante sta cosa. Non hai mai giocato e vorrei provarne uno? Quale strategico vi consigli che è presente su Game Pass o PlayStation Plus Extra? Strategico? Strategico dici? Beh, ti direi il nuovo capitolo di quello che è il nonno degli strategici. Su Game Pass c'è Age of Empires. E per quello c'è anche Total War, mi pare. O comunque tanti altri strategici. Sì, ma vai per categorie, credo che ci sia anche su Game Pass dovrebbe esserci, mi pare che ci sia. Ordina per categorie e vedi gli strategici. Vedi uno che ti ispira, di cui hai sentito parlare, provalo un po'.
That was the first worry. Second worry. Anche
se il mio consiglio da 20 anni a questa parte è sempre quello di iniziare con StarCraft. Perché vabbè, per tante ragioni, però purtroppo è solo PC e solo Battle.net. Però credo che sia anche gratuito al momento, credo che la campagna te la puoi giocare almeno quella buona parte della principale. In Hollywood 1990, ciao! Grazie mille del follow, benvenuto. Beh, Halo Wars è un po' peculiare come strategico, io l'ho soltanto provato. Solo console? Allora, ho sentito parlare molto bene di Iron Harvest, non so se c'è sul Game Pass, però è un gioco che vale la pena. Se è solo console, che strategico c'è su console? Questo lo devi chiedere a Oscar. Vai su Telegram e chiedilo a Oscar. Digli proprio così, mai provato uno strategico, vorrei giocarne uno su console. Probabilmente ti dirà Iron Harvest, però vabbè.
Worry, of course, was will fans sort of accept it for what it is? Will they accept the decisions we made to that point? That we made because we thought it would make for a better game
sì, ecco, allora quello sì. Halo Wars è anche su console. Però Halo Wars è un po' peculiare come strategico.
So there's definitely some fear that, like, even if the game was kind of acquitting itself well and representing itself well, that for whatever reason, players may not accept it on Steam, or may try to kind of express their displeasure with some of the decisions that we made to that point with the tools that Steam gives you.
All of our games have been on Steam, and it's, I believe it's our single biggest audience in total. So our games have been on all sorts of different consoles and different computer platforms, mobile devices, stuff like that. But all of our games are on Steam, and that's where we have quite a dedicated following from over the years. So we knew bringing Hades to Steam was going to be a big deal. Though when we were starting out, and knowing that we were going to make an early access game for the first time, and on top of that, an early access roguelike game, if that's all you know about what we're working on, and you're a fan of our previous games that are known for being these kind of compact experiences with a discrete beginning, middle, and end, the idea Supergiant making an early access roguelike is actually pretty concerning on the face of it. It's like, what? Like that's not what I want from these guys. They're known for their kind of atmosphere and their beautiful artwork and their stories and their kind of like intricately woven narrative and gameplay and all this kind of stuff. Why are you
Anche questa è una cosa comune a tutti i team di sviluppo, cioè pensate che prima di Hades, che al momento è senza alcun dubbio il loro titolo di successo più grande e ha vinto molti premi Hades, il che mi ha fatto estremamente piacere, e probabilmente non ci fosse stato cioè era un mio personale candidato a Game of the Year, ok? E non ci fosse stato, era il 2020 giusto? Quindi mi pare di ricordare, sì, non ci fosse stato The Last of Us Parte 2, sarebbe stato, non lo so, c'è una seria possibilità che sarebbe stato il mio gioco dell'anno, però vabbè, c'erano tanti giochi prima, hanno sviluppato almeno 3 giochi prima, cioè Bastion, Transistor e Pyre, e l'utenza affezionata ai prodotti di Supergiant fino a quel momento, poi è arrivato Hades, era diverso, roguelike, in early access, come e questa fanbase qui, e poi alla fine il gioco è una Madonna Santissima fatto da Dio, e quindi è andato tutto bene, no? Quindi sì, è una preoccupazione per tutti, ma gradirà la nostra utenza, davvero sarà bello? Se fai un gioco della Madonnissima, andrà tutto bene, andrà tutto bene.
You making an early access roguelike, that sounds like you can't do any of the stuff that you guys are normally good at in that kind of format. But knowing we were going to do the early access thing for the first time ever, that was something where we knew full well we needed to kind of learn to walk before we learned to run. So we did not want to start that process in front of what's historically been our biggest audience, for whom there's only one chance to make a good first impression. It made much more sense to us to start our early access in a place where we knew that some of our most dedicated players would definitely be there, help us, help give feedback, and while we kind of learned the ropes, improved our development process of actually kind of managing early access, because it's so different from a production standpoint, how we work now compared to how we've worked in the past, and also just straight up make the game way better through that process. I think through the course of those 8 major updates, I say we more than tripled the size of the game. What folks got when we first launched in December of 2018 versus what they got in December of 2019 is like, I think, quite a substantially different game, a game that's now we could safely say is the biggest game we've ever made already.
And we also had a sense that the decisions we had made to that point were very consistent with our values as a studio. Like, we didn't announce the game for Steam and then pull it or something like that. We had announced the game for the Epic Games Store. We had explained our reasoning for doing so. We had talked about how it would be coming to Steam eventually, and now we're doing what we had talked about. And even just doing what we said, though, it doesn't mean that people wouldn't be angry about it. They have every right to be, to feel however they want. People are very emotionally attached to games and to the platforms they play games on, and I think a common kind of affliction of all creators and game developers is to focus on the part that worries you, even in the face of overwhelming evidence that things are probably going to be okay. And so, we knew there was a lot of demand for it. We were excited to meet that demand. We just couldn't have guessed how that was going to go.
My name is Caitlin Sales, and my official job title is Office Assistant. My main touchpoint for Hades is usually Discord and also our actual website support ticket system. There is sort of like an element to community stuff that does feel a little bit like a watch position, just because if things come up or if people are having issues or if people are being particularly loud about something, it's my responsibility to escalate it to make sure that it gets seen. I think one of the most common responses to our game usually tends to be that they want to see really specific gods. As we've updated, we've added more and more from the pantheon and from Greek mythology. You know, you're dealing with a source material that has literally thousands of years of fans. People want to see Hercules, even though in our game...
He's not a god, right?
He's not, well... I'm actually a big Greek mythology nerd, so it's like you're asking these questions and it's just opening a Greek mythology can of worms. I took ancient Greek in college, A, because I like mythology, but B, because it's not an oral language, so I didn't have to take an oral test. So people really want to see Hercules, who in our game would probably be Heracles. Before we added the weapon aspects, especially some of the not more minor gods, but not on the pantheon gods like Nemesis, occasionally cropped up. I had someone recently send us a ticket requesting to see Iris, who is the goddess of rainbows. And they were like, I don't know, maybe she just makes rainbows when you're fighting, or like gives you a completely random boon when you meet her. And it's a sweet idea. I don't know what the likelihood of it is, but I think it's a sweet request. My favorite Greek myth character is Hermes, but I think my favorite, he's one of my favorites in the game for sure. Achilles.
La caratterizzazione che hanno dato agli dei dentro Hades è veramente impressionante. Comunque, un'altra cosa, ragazzi, la quantità di dialoghi che ci sono in questo gioco è fuori di testa. Io non so quante hanno fatto. Io ho finito il gioco, sono arrivato alla conclusione della storia e ai titoli di coda. D'accordo? Ecco, io credo di non aver mai fatto una run con gli stessi dialoghi. Credo di non aver mai visto gli stessi dialoghi. Una quantità di roba spropositata. Veramente spropositata. È stata una delle cose che mi ha veramente sorpreso. Ma quanta roba hanno scritto e quanta roba hanno localizzato. Cioè, tutti quelli che hanno fatto il doppiaggio. Ma quanta roba hanno registrato? Una marea. Veramente incredibile. Ogni volta un nuovo dialogo. Spaventoso. Non credo di aver mai visto un dialogo uguale a un altro. Ma su decine e decine e decine di incontri con, che ne so, Zeus o Demetra. E oltretutto, mano a mano si sapevano più cose. I dialoghi ti davano un pezzettino di storia se stavi a seguire bene. Oh mio Dio.
Achilles, Athena, Dusa.
Dusa.
Bio is months ago now.
I played Athena. Yeah. I have played Athena. I didn't look anything as cool as our Athena, but I wore these like 8-inch platform shoes, so I was 6'4". It was really fun. Yeah, I think probably Achilles and Chaos. Chaos, they are also my favorite. I just sort of like vaguely threatening mentor figures, I think is really what it is. Like Achilles is full of love, but he's also a famous Greek warrior who killed a lot of people, and Chaos is the literal concept of chaos, who definitely seems to care for Zagreus, but how much can entropy really care about you, you know?
Okay, Greg, you have to pick any structural changes, how the death moment should work.
Launching on Steam is quite a big deal for us because it starts. There are just so many details that go into it. One of the things I was quite busy with was just preparing our Steam page itself for launch. The Steam page is kind of your hub, making sure players know what kind of game you have, what's interesting about it, and provide answers to all the questions that you anticipate they might have. We worked with a gentleman named Sean Finney to create this new trailer-esque video that we launched right alongside the game on Steam, and it's kind of the biggest such video we've ever made. It's normally we would say like, oh man, a trailer should never exceed about 90 seconds, but this is like a full 3 minutes long, kind of going through everything that there is about the game.
Secondo me è stata una buona idea.
You guys need to watch it here, so I would come up
Il
because
trailer più
we're gonna lose
completo.
Walkie. This is a too fast part.
Agreed.
And the gun shouldn't be in shotgun mode. I like this part.
All right, so then from the structural changes, just going through section by section, I think that it was good. I thought it had the right stuff and it went in the right order. Structurally, the only part, like let's say we're gonna keep our feedback to like what he actually shows in each section when we do the time code stuff.
Yeah.
Structurally, only the weapon part felt like way off to me in terms of like, it was like so fast.
Yeah, showing all of the weapons, similar with like all the gods, we just don't have time for it. So it's probably like show 2 and then have some like, and many more, you know.
When you're on Steam, you're not really there to like bask in the cinematic experience of some like slow atmospheric trailer. You just want to know, what are you getting? What does it look like? What stuff is in it? And ultimately, you know, is this a game? Is this a game for me? That's your question.
That decent chunk of the footage that he's chosen, for obvious reasons, because it's cool, like when you look at it.
It's like explosive.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, there's a lot of stuff happening. There's a part at the beginning of the room when you have like 2 guys to fight, and the part that he's chosen, which is when this room is full of shit.
Sure, we should call those out.
Call those out specifically, yeah.
He also made some choices that I thought were really good.
I agree.
Because he chose some fights that were, like when he chose the Nemesis aspect, for example, is one of the moments where I was like, this is actually pretty...
So again, I just want to make the distinction that we should identify the specific parts that are cluttered as opposed to giving them the feedback that it's all...
I totally agree with that, and I think one of the parts is for the weapon. If you want to show the weapons, don't have a lot of other shit happening, just like have the weapon shooting and like...
Yeah, the Sword Nova, you just want to see it like hit 1 or 2 guys.
Yeah, exactly.
So in addition to all the stuff that's just kind of standard on a Steam page, for early access games, there's a whole why early access type of section. It's a whole big kind of, it's almost like an interview format that you have to fill out. It's a Q&A type of format, and we wanted to fill that out in thorough detail so that again, anyone, you know, with kind of particular questions, like how far along is it, when's it going to be done? There are things like, are you going to raise the price when it's done, or change the price in some way? All those things are covered in this FAQ type of format. And then we also have to prepare our Steam forums. For us, we really wanted to preempt a lot of that discussion by introducing ourselves. As soon as the game launched, we had a technical support FAQ, so any questions about can't get the game to run, anything like that, we start gathering that information and putting those answers out there so the commonly brought up issues can get resolved quickly, and just trying to be active and attentive in there as much as possible.
If we're gonna officially accept feedback on Steam, then we should have a process there too. So it's kind of like derived from, it lacks the formality of Hades feedback in Discord, but it has the recommendations of like, hey, at least do these things, and we're going to moderate this forum more heavily than general discussions.
It's important to us, and being present to respond to concerns or answer folks' questions before there's like any community to answer those questions. I think it's just an important part of this type of launch.
It's been really important that we kind of read everything and that we look at everything and that someone on the team has seen it all because we don't want to miss anything, because we know that any player out there who gives us a note is probably representative of like dozens or hundreds or thousands of other players.
I want to take the stance of let's build up our Discord here. I'll take one bad actor out of 100 good ones as a consequence of like growing the community, because we'll just ban that person.
So someone who gets into that, because they click to expand it, like they're already very interested and excited about it. Like if they get into it there, it's fine. It's mostly like if join our Discord is the first thing, in the early access section that you saw.
Tell us what you think about our business decisions in our Discord. Yeah, then we'll hear about it. But it's just tucked away enough, to where hopefully it's. And also, obviously, if it is bad for some reason, we just remove it, right?
Like, if we're getting flooded, we can
just walk it back.
Yeah.
The first thing I look at is actually just store traffic. Are people coming to the page? Where are they coming from? Are they
Publishing
coming
director.
right away because of our messaging? Are they coming at a slower clip because someone else is talking about it, or because it's being featured on the platform in some capacity? And then the next thing you look at is the raw wishlist number, but also the relationship between the number of unique users coming in and the wishlist is also really important. Got a good trailer and got a good store page. Hopefully you're converting those eyeballs at a pretty high clip. And if you aren't converting those into wish lists, it could be a whole bunch of issues. One could be price, one could be availability elsewhere. Maybe they want to play on a console, but the Steam page is the only thing that's open. Or maybe you need to go back and rethink how all those marketing assets are built, because you're not telling a story that is engaging customers in your product long term.
Hades has been localized into English, French, Italian, German, Spanish, Korean, Russian, Brazilian, Portuguese. We'll just cut the other languages, I didn't count. I forget how many languages it was. It was, yeah, I think that was all of them.
Sono tante le lingue. E vi ricordate che cosa ho detto della quantità di dialoghi? Ecco, questi sono dei ragazzi che invece il lavoro di localizzazione hanno scelto di essere molto inclusivi. E quindi grazie a Dio c'è stato l'italiano. L'abbiamo potuto seguire per benino tutti quanti.
Polish. I am sorry, Poland. I'm sorry.
The Epic Game Store was, as a news storefront, was really focused in on Western audiences, and Steam being such a mature platform with a ton of different currencies and payment processors, bringing in China and Korea was a real big focus, and so adding localizations
was a
big part that we decided to do there in the last
vuol dire?
phase. So that was one of the ways that
anche un
we
team che
looked at the data that we
ha
saw
saputo ascoltare i
before
giocatori
launching,
per
where people were
benino
coming to the page
e ha saputo
from.
investire anche in
So that's all a whole
localizzazione.
bunch of stuff that doesn't even doesn't even say anything about all the work we were doing on the game itself. It's like, here's another really critical
Attenzione a tutte le lingue e culture. Multietnico e multiculturale è un'altra cosa. Multietnico e multiculturale non sono sovrapponibili.
If this is a total disaster, our lives are going to be a certain way for a long time. If
sono
this
un paese
goes
multietnico, non necessariamente
it's also going to change things. So
però
it's kind of going to be a lot of work, no matter what. But I'd rather have the work on the positive side of things than on the disaster side of things. And so we just try to prepare as much as possible and anticipate as many of the issues as we felt we might run into, of which there were many, and just kind of hang on to our seats.
Aspetta, c'è stato l'early access pure su Steam? Questa mi mancava.
On Steam,
non me lo ricordavo.
L'ho
scordato sta cosa.
You're just waiting on the game to go live before you do the post?
No, I'm going to do the post right now. Yeah, so it should, if I refresh now, it should just show
Ma
up
anche
here.
multiculturale è una cosa, inclusivo verso altre culture è una... Esatto.
So the old release
assolutamente.
And check the pricing.
Yeah, the build is all staged, yeah.
Pricing looks good. This is the gift copy set up. All right, publish now. Test my typing. It's up.
Bam! Pubblicato.
Great Games Live.
Non ho idea come funzioni. Demon Macaco, ciao, grazie mille del follow. Benvenuti in chat per la prima volta.
It's just a soft launch. It is live. Sweet. Launched a video game. And now I'm trying to launch DLC. Built here.
Which one? Who what?
We download Hades off of Steam and just make sure it plays.
I mean, I have it on Steam. I was playing it yesterday through Steam. Do you mean a different?
Just uninstall it and download it again.
Got it.
Just in case.
Ottimo team, risolviamo. Sì, no, assolutamente.
For Hades.
Che ci tiene a quello che fanno, questo è sopra ogni altra cosa, direi. Incontriamo un cliente per te. Esatto.
And the soundtrack, surprisingly, with awesome gen art. And then we have the Supergiant Collection bundle, which is also going live today, which has been live but was taken down so that we could retool it, and now we're going to relaunch it with Hades. No user reviews.
You're gonna be the first?
Where's my mom when I need her?
Yeah.
So we did a year of early access updates.
No, abbiamo fatto nello stesso istante,
just like
Saplice,
looking
buonasera.
at what the game looked like before it entered early access on the Epic Game Store. So these are from the first year of development. Just screenshots taken a couple months apart.
Hey, Will.
Our first attempt at our opening room and
I have a new...
all sorts of other random stuff.
Voglio il suo banana, non sei degno.
At the very beginning. it's just like seemed like a good time to remind ourselves of where we started.
Documentario su Hades.
Nostalgia helping you through the stress of launching the game today.
Agakure, grazie mille della sub. Grazie per 3 mesi. Grazie di cuore. Buonasera.
Like, I'm gonna give myself something to do. Oh, look at old screenshots.
I'm just gonna re-upload a copy of the trailer just in case, like as a new trailer, we can always swap it. The only difference should be that the thumbnail is correct, but maybe it'll magically fix the quality.
So this is the real-time users.
Same reason why
a lot of them.
And that makes sense. Yeah, I will do that.
Because they're awake.
Because they're awake, ready to play. People coming in from.
Lo stanno per togliere il Game Pass, ho ancora modo di provarlo. Mi ero scordato che c'era il Game Pass. Ma guardate, se c'è mai stato un gioco che si merita l'acquisto è questo qui.
Pretty anticlimactic because they're just kind of busy. My fantasy of it is the nice, champagne toast, huzzah, congratulations, pats on the back all around. We did it, we got there, but it just never goes that way. It's just people at their, you go into it expecting a bunch of stuff to go wrong and to try to deal with it as quickly as possible. So we had some kind of complicated stuff with the Hades launch insofar as we had a big and exciting special offer as part of the launch, which was that we were giving away our previous game, Pyre, completely for free if you pick up Hades, and it's a giftable copy. So we wanted to make sure that if you already, if you're a fan of Supergiant, you already have Pyre, there's still some value there. You could give the copy to someone else. Mechanically, it makes it a little bit different because the copy goes into your Steam inventory rather than being added directly to your library. So we had to manage some issues around that and some communication around that. Some folks would be like, where's Pyre? I don't have it. It's like, oh, don't worry, it's right there in your library. Sorry, not in your library, in your inventory. Yeah, things like that. We also launched our soundtrack, which, like the game, the soundtrack itself is not done, but our soundtrack already has close to 2 hours of awesome Darren Korb music on it. So you're basically launching a bunch of products at the same time and managing the communication around that and basically, checking for any customer support issues and addressing those as quickly as possible.
Caitlin, what are you setting live?
I'm going with Instagram first.
Nice.
It's the most stressful because you can't do it from
non siamo mai stati abbastanza piazzesi. Esatto.
Amazing.
Infatti, avete contribuito, lo so ragazzi, lo so bene. Grazie di nuovo.
Same copy as Twitter. It
Whatever's
has to
on
be
social media.
our base language for social media.
Nice.
And then after this, I'll have to do Facebook as well, and continue to monitor Instagram, Facebook, and back to our Discord, where we're getting a lot of very good-hearted people, and also where we're getting a lot of our reports of potential issues.
Yes.
And then transferring that to our communications channel to make sure that the things that go wrong can get solved.
Can you tell me what you're working on, Darren?
Trying to find the DLC of the soundtrack
schermata moderatore è in
Steam says I
fondo.
have downloaded it and it is installed.
Torna nella schermata normale, di nuovo sulla rotellina, mi pare.
So we gave ourselves an hour to make sure everything is working, and we're getting some of the first feedback, which is it's mostly working. People are able to purchase the game on Steam and get their free giftable copy of Pyre, which is cool. That's something we were interested in doing, partly because
Infatti non serve la schermata mod.
we thought it would be a
Quella è solo per avere sempre tutto sott'occhio, cioè più adatta a un canale grande.
And also, anyone who might be skeptical about early access can get one of our finished games, and maybe that will help them feel like it's worth taking a chance on.
I've never had a giftable thing in my Steam library. So
Volgo in donazione al costante sostegno ai canini cittadini, non spero non abbia male a nessuno, ma figurati, non ti preoccupare, è tutto ovviamente opzionale come sempre. Era un'occasione per la donazione alla Croce Rossa, ma se già stai facendo altro, figurati. Va benissimo.
And I don't know where to check for a giftable copy of Pyre.
It should be in your inventory.
Okay, great. My new item, Pyre. I can gift this. It's a gift copy.
Who's it gone to?
I don't know, man.
Poi se ho capito bene, ma insieme all'acquisto di Hades davano Pyre su Steam. Sì, mi pare di sì.
Everyone I know play our games, so.
Mi pare di sì.
Rolling.
We're looking at a cool thing.
Let's hope it's still there. Let's hope it's still there. Hey!
It's gorgeous.
Look at that.
Nice.
You got a takeover. We took over the whole thing.
We took it all over.
Nice.
Nice work.
It just belonged to us.
So it's been 3 hours, 4 hours since we started all the Steam activity, and game is up. People are purchasing it. It's in the Steam top 10 right now, and there's the weird feeling that I've come to identify as a type of sadness, which is we're running out of things to do. There's plenty to do, like actual stuff to do, but we're running out of things to do today on the launch. So yeah, now we just kind of sit back and watch how people receive it and see how that all goes. So
Sì, perché questo
yeah.
cioè, tecnicamente è un altro early access, però è su un pubblico diverso che è quello di Steam, che è spaventosamente più grande di quello di Epic Games. Vergente ha rilasciato Hades in early access di Steam a 10 dicembre 2019. 24 ore dopo si sono incontrati per discutere le conseguenze, cioè il risultato, diciamo.
we're meeting. I think we put the fears in Slack. I need to pull it
Oh yeah, we did.
the strategy channel real quick.
Slack è un programma che si usa per il team management, ok? Io non lo uso, anche perché non mi servirebbe un cazzo. Anche se qualcuno che collabora con me ce l'ho. Però moltissimi team che lavorano su qualunque cosa, e per esempio è molto adatto a uno studio di sviluppo di videogiochi, lo usa, no? Mi ricordo che ne parlava anche Yoshida, quindi pure dall'altra parte del mondo. È molto usato.
So I will overview the fears, then we'll go through them one by one. And then after that, JP can leave.
Camera stays though?
No.
It's ironic that an early access launch would like be more stable than like a full game release.
I mean, I've talked about that in our
Yeah.
bigger meetings. I think it's actually, it's extended to everything, right?
Yeah.
The game being stable and playable at all points in development, unlike, when if we don't force everybody to do play tests,
Yeah.
no one plays it and it's not stable. Whereas, it would have only been Steam-specific Steam things, which other than the person who tried to run it through their Steam Link
On
onto
their
like a
Samsung
Samsung, onto a Samsung
I missed that one.
TV, and then it mostly worked except the volume buttons on the TV triggered caused an error.
Probably sent a bunch of great data to Samsung now.
Yeah, Alice's comment was funny that somebody else tried to run it on their refrigerator, on their smart fridge.
in their Tesla while going down the highway.
Yeah, exactly.
So the first step was, would people give the game a chance, given some of the heat around the Epic Games Store on Steam? So what's our review on that? It seems like
it's just squirreling within bounds.
Yeah,
that's what I would say.
Didn't spill out of the discussion forums,
No.
kind of a little bit in the reviews.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
it's just kind of like, it's there, it continues to be there, it's not, it didn't kind of go off the, our fear was that it would go off the charts and kind of be worse than expected, and it was not worse than expected.
There's literally one review about it so far, right?
It's one
Just
review.
that first guy?
There's
Or-
a lot, but
Oh,
Greg
I
has
know.
been
Yeah.
in the
Yeah,
Yeah,
Steam,
there's
the
a lot.
Steam reviews. It's just there's only one.
Yeah,
review
it clearly, I mean, knock on wood, but it clearly has not substantially affected the reviews at the moment.
Yeah.
So that's very, very good. The initial momentum of the reviews is probably telling. Like, I think if your reviews survive the first day, unless you then go and do something boneheaded, it's probably likely
Qualcosa
to
di
sort
ossuto.
of hold the line, relatively speaking. So
you get the critical mass of hey, people think this is a really good game, so I'm not gonna review it negatively.
And some people, I think when a bunch of people do like something, it happens all the time with Metacritic also, it always goes down, if people really like something, it creates a backlash of people who go in with intent to not like it, and then they do that and stuff, but it still just sort of balances out.
That part has been our experience of bringing our games to all sorts of platforms.
Yeah.
Right? It's like as soon as we do it, a lot of the frustration goes.
It's nice. There's a handful of reviews of people who just bought it and then immediately wrote, I have put 300 hours into this game, and here is my review of it. And
because they've been playing the other version.
Yeah, and they just write about EGS in there, which is nice.
So the game comes out on Steam, and it has a really good day one. And we're like, cool, that was a really strong day one. Like, people seem happy. Everyone can play the game. It's like one of our most stable launches. The user reviews are starting to look pretty good, but it's really early. And then on the second day, it did as well as the first day. And then on the third day, it did as well as the first day. And then suddenly you start to have this sense like, oh my God, it's like almost embarrassing. You're like, okay, hold on a second now. It was quite amazing to see that, like, hey, our early adopter fans, turns out they are representative of like a larger audience. They are just fans. And a lot of people wanted to play a lot of Hades, and that was starting to show up really quickly in a matter of days in how the game was performing and in how customers were talking about the game, and then how people started talking about the game on social media and in forums and in our Discord.
Il nostro Discord,
suddenly, you know, you realize, holy crap, we like really have something here.
The really eye-popping thing, among numerous eye-popping things that happened after the Steam launch, was the reviews of the game were really, really positive. For the first couple of days, we told ourselves that this is just the reviews coming from people who've enjoyed the game in early access thus far. They're just there to support us, and thank you folks so much. We really appreciate that support. But we just couldn't really believe that those kind of review scores were like really, really happening to us, because they're better than any of our previous games.
Guardate bene. Overwhelmingly positive, e sono tante. Sono molto contento per questo team. E il gioco se lo merita.
Games. It was shocking. I was shocked, and I continue to be somewhat shocked by it.
The part that was like truly and utterly shocking, the performance was great, everything was good, was the 98% overwhelmingly positive review score, which was higher than any of our previous games. And we are a studio who has been really privileged and blessed to release games that people think really
Ancora
highly of.
98%
And,
positive?
you know, we always
Perfetto.
want one of our
Te lo
games
merita.
when it comes out, like, to have the
Tradotto
potential
a
to be
Cat de
someone's
Ville.
favorite game.
Sì.
And,
Assolutamente.
Hades was like
Non potrei essere più
turning
d'accordo.
out to be like a lot of people's favorite thing from us. Anyway, it's not even done.
I do think players are reviewing some of the promise of the game. You do see that theme sometimes of like, oh man, it's so good, and it's not even done, right? So they're probably imagining ways in which it might get even better. So a really important question is, will we as a development team like live up to whatever those expectations are that we've created? And on the other hand, hopefully again, we've been very upfront about what is still to come about this
Siamo
game.
al 97?
The user reviews
Sì, direi che è ancora
were
ottimo, sì.
nutty. We were so excited.
Altro che se la
And
prima
then,
occasione avevamo una live tranquilla, voglio discutere il
very
prossimo gioco
quickly,
dell'anno, perché tanti parlano del The Ring, ma secondo me è
just
sbagliato,
got
troppo
into
ancora
the-
di nicchia.
into the game
Però secondo me
developer place,
succederà.
or into the Supergiant place. I don't know if it's the same.
Secondo me
which is
succederà.
like, God, what happens if it goes to 97?
No, la prossima live tranquilla è
What will it
domenica.
mean?
Tra
That's
3
because
giorni.
the actual like meaning behind it, whatever, if it was a lower or higher number, is like you didn't fuck it up. Like a whole bunch of people really, really like it. They're really, really happy with their purchase. They're really excited to see where it's going to go. They have faith in you as a game developer. You like earned it. You earned it from them. They didn't have to sit down and write you a review. They didn't have to do any of that. But they did, and you totally made sure that they had a worthwhile experience with
La
the time
danno
you spent
veramente
with
come
your
una cosa
game,
certa,
which
sì,
is,
sì, sì.
you know,
Io sono d'accordo.
Never to be taken for granted. So that part of it was really, really nice. And so I think when that started happening, it's like, oh my God, I don't know. Like, what does it mean? What does it all mean? And, you know, we're asking each other what it means. It means that it is possible that a decade in, that this is some of the best work we've ever done together, which would be crazy as an idea. Like, it would be crazy because it like validates the whole point, right? Which is like, you know, if we could do
Anche
this
2 points,
together
per
for
quello
a
non c'è
long
tanta
time,
gente per le pagine. Sì, ma quelle il secondo canale Twitch si sta in pochi. Meglio parlare durante la sera di iscritti.
Which is cool. Which was really cool.
E questa, ragazzi, è la fine di questa parte qua.
Hey, it is Saturday, August 17th, and I'm red in the face because I just got back from a run. And while on that run, as tends to be the case, I had an idea, and it was that, oh damn, we haven't been filming nearly enough stuff, because we are starting to do some real important work toward a deadline coming up way down in December, but that's how far ahead we have to plan. This particular deadline is the launch of Hades on Steam. Much sooner than December 10th, when it will be launching, is the announcement, which is coming up on Thursday this week, day after my birthday. It's going to be a busy week. So today, I started putting together our Steam Coming Soon page here in the comfort of my what passes for a home office place where I've been doing a great deal of work while at Supergiant Games since the good old Bastion days. So let's see what we have so far. I'm gonna turn this thing around.
Ok, ragazzi. Questa era la seconda parte della nostra reaction, manca la terza con i segmenti 5 e 6 perché adesso guardate che manca ancora la reazione alla 1.0 vera e propria, perché ancora stiamo parlando del lancio su Steam, ma dell'early access, quindi in realtà tutto quello che è successo dopo la caterva di premi vinti, eccetera, lo dobbiamo ancora vedere. L'altra cosa è che il team di lì a breve, cioè dall'early access in poi, ricordate, si tratta di dicembre 2019. Che cosa è successo dopo pochi mesi? Un certo virus ha cominciato a diffondersi, eccetera, eccetera, no? Ecco. Quindi questo sarà il tema del prossimo episodio che, se tutto fila liscio, sarà giovedì prossimo. Dicevo una volta l'articolo su come è cambiata la vita dei team e i rapporti con le case, un tempo quello che contavano le vendite, oggi i team vivono nell'ansia del metascore perché dicevano che indipendentemente dalle vendite delle case gli azionisti stanno addosso se il metascore non è a livello delle aspettative. Sì, l'ho letto anch'io e ci sono molti report su questi. Io posso dire che è una cosa piuttosto stupida e quindi una volta che una cosa è chiaramente stupida anche gli azionisti lo capiranno. E entrerà nella cultura anche degli azionisti di compagnie videoludiche comprendere che il metascore è troppo parziale, instabile e effimero per poter applicarci un qualche tipo di giudizio totale sull'opera, senza alcun dubbio. Il metascore va preso per quello che è, una cosa in più che viene data liberamente da tante persone, bisogna dargli il peso che ha, né più né meno. Finito. Ho capito il pezzo finale. Era una cosa in più aggiunta per mostrare che cosa ha significato il lancio su Steam. Vabbè, almeno io l'ho intesa così. E niente ragazzi, manca l'ultima parte e quindi poi lo vedremo. Però è sempre figo vedere come lavora un team di sviluppo all'interno e questo è uno piuttosto piccolo, se notate. Io non vedo l'ora di sapere che cosa faranno poi perché voglio vedere come evolve, spero che ci sarà un altro documentario e a sto giro lo vedremo insieme proprio, nel senso che non lo vedrò io in anticipo ma lo vedrò insieme a voi. d'accordo? Anzi, questa cosa delle reaction mi sta piacendo e credo che sia una bella cosa da fare, vedere insieme le cose. Ci sto pensando anche su altri canali per film e serie TV. Wink wink, wink wink. Ok? Va bene, ragazzi, io se avete delle domande, delle altre considerazioni, sono le benvenute. Questo è quello che dovevo dire, in realtà ve l'ho detto durante le pause mentre stavamo vedendo il video, perciò non ho molto da dire. Le cose finali io me le tengo per la fine. Okay? Anche quello di God of War è interessante, assolutamente, il documentario God of War è bellissimo ed è una delle cose che mi andrebbe di vedere insieme a voi, assolutamente sì, e vale la pena, e probabilmente lo faremo, anche se lì un minimo di preoccupazione per quanto riguarda il copyright un po' ce l'ho, però vabbè, vedrò che cosa fare. Continuo come sempre hanno fatto, il prossimo gioco sarà diverso da Hades, probabilmente sì. Però una formula che ha funzionato così dannatamente bene, cioè i giochi precedenti sono stati apprezzati, però entro certi limiti. Hades ha fatto il botto proprio, e quindi, non so, magari potrebbe cambiare un po' la cosa e potrebbero ancorarsi di più a un certo modo di fare le cose, però magari no, magari sarà diverso tutto un'altra volta. Il gioco è venuto bene perché ci hanno lavorato tanto, semplice verità, assolutamente. Ci hanno lavorato tanto, ci hanno lavorato bene e hanno continuato a farlo. Sono molto appassionati e ci tengono molto a tante cose e si vede, traspare proprio chiaramente. Ok? Va bene, ragazzi. Noi ci salutiamo qui, ci vediamo con il prossimo appuntamento qui sul primo canale Twitch è per, se non c'è qualcosa che mi sto scordando, è per domenica con la serata iscritti e followers, e l'ultima parte del documentario di Hades lo vedremo giovedì prossimo, come vi stavo dicendo, ok? Grazie a tutti, gente, mi raccomando, seguitemi qui su Twitch se ancora non l'avete fatto, pigiate quel bel cuoricino, abbonatevi con Twitch Prime se ne avete la possibilità perché aiuta davvero tantissimo il canale, seguitemi anche sui social come Instagram e Telegram dove c'è la community, supportate il canale tramite i link affiliati tipo Amazon, Instant Gaming o tramite il Patreon, e iscrivetevi anche ai miei 2 canali YouTube se ancora non l'avete fatto, mi raccomando, tutti i link sono qui sotto o tramite il bot in chat, d'accordo? Alla prossima, ragazzi.